Hello, I'm David Benites, and this is Extreme Vocal Institute. And here on our YouTube channel, I really like to talk about everything singing, screaming, and beyond. And in order to do that, sometimes we need to talk about the exact opposite of vocalizing and understanding how to take time away and really make sure that you can properly rest when needed. Sometimes it's a little difficult to understand when you need to step away and what that really means. In lessons, when I'm working one-on-one with people and online on all of our various platforms, we get a lot of questions about vocal rest and what it really means in the first place. Sometimes people have never really taken time off at all from vocalizing, especially when starting to learn on their own, and it gets really easy to develop this need to just be overworking all the time without knowing how to balance it. Our vocals are like any other muscle in the body. The vocal cords, the false cords, everything we have in the vocal tract behaves like everything else we have as well, in that when you use it, and when you use it a lot, it's important to give yourself time to heal, to rest, to recuperate. And with that comes the very important understanding of knowing when to stop. Anyone who's really great at anything, regardless of what it is, will tell you that it's not really the thing that they do itself, that's what they're particularly good at. What they understand more often than not is just rest, knowing how to step away and knowing when it's time to stop. Now, to get a little into the science aspect of this, it's important to take steps back from our vocals and not necessarily work on it all day, every day, in order to make sure the body has time to heal and regenerate the things that you've burned through, regenerate muscle tissue, build itself back up stronger. This is why we practice and we work on ourselves in this way in the first place. The reason you even looked up our channel here and you are taking it upon yourself to learn is you're trying to build. What direction that is up to you, but generally we're all trying to work towards different goals that we have, and being able to do that well and to the best of our ability in a way that's going to benefit us the most means not just chugging forward with everything we have constantly all the time without letting up at all. Everything's about balance, so it's about giving ourselves that space and that time to rest. Because especially when we take time away from it, that's when, again, our body has time to build itself up stronger. This is how the body adapts to regular, consistent work. By showing your body routinely on a regular basis what it is you're trying to do. For many of you out there watching our channel, I know that's learning how to scream, working on singing things, and otherwise. Through consistent work on a regular basis, you're kind of rewriting how your body responds to different situations. And more often than not, it's taking something that we think requires a lot of work and a lot of physical effort, and it simplifies it and it brings it back down to a manageable level. And now something that was difficult at one point, regardless of what it is, in this instance, it's vocals. For some, it's like running. Maybe it's lifting weights. Maybe you play a specific sport. Maybe it's just learning anything at all and trying to comprehend it. The body eventually realizes, oh, we're doing this regularly. This is something we're doing all the time. This doesn't have to be as difficult as we're making it out to be. And the body will respond by adapting to make that activity take less overall effort. And that's part of how we make what we're doing, regardless of what it is, healthier and make it work for us rather than us working for it. The other reason that vocal rest is important is because of making sure we avoid injury, or making sure that if you have been injured vocally in the past, making sure you aren't overly aggravating it, re-injuring anything, and finding workarounds for different things. That's something I work on with many people here at Extreme Vocal Institute. People who are concerned about injury or people coming out of the other side of it unsure of how to handle themselves now that it has happened in the past. It's all about mindfulness and understanding how to push your limits safely without going a little too far and without getting too excited and simultaneously not too timid and stressed out about what it is you're trying to do. Now, vocal rest exists in many forms, and it's important to not overwork yourself as well. Like if you're vocalizing all day, every day for hours and hours and hours, it's really easy to become very fatigued, regardless of how good your form is or how correct everything you're doing is, if such a thing exists. Hint, it doesn't. But when we overwork the body like this, it creates a lot of general wear and tear, especially if little things are off, like you start to use a little too much air, you're kind of squeezing a little bit in response to that in the throat. And this is when the voice can get very tired. This happens even after like long periods of just talking. The vocal cords get a little, that kind of scratchy, uncomfortable, itchy feeling. You might get some of that warm sensation in the throat. Your body might send up a couple of those red flags being like, hey, you need to cut it out for a second. And it's really important to listen to our bodies when this happens, because it's trying to tell you something. And it's all about self-preservation. These red flags only go up for a couple of different reasons. When you're close to hurting yourself, or when your body doesn't understand what you're asking it to do. That's part of the learning process here that I talk about all the time, the trial and error process, in which half of that is the error part. And as I say all the time, it's important to give ourselves the space and the time to be wrong and to get things wrong and be okay with that. But because of that, it's understanding that there is going to be a fair amount of wear and tear because of this. So part of practicing at all is understanding that we are subjecting ourselves to little bits of damage and wear and tear on purpose. That's the point. That's how we gradually build ourselves up into being stronger, and this is how we up our endurance as well in whichever direction we see fit. Now, this doesn't always mean going entirely cold turkey and taking steps back so far that you're just not vocalizing at all. You can do that in more extreme circumstances. And when I have students that have, for example, like gone to a doctor and they've been told, oh yeah, you have like a bit of a tear here, you have a little bit of a throat bleed here, you have like nodes, things like that, the really scary things that none of us want to hear. That's when you do need to take some strict vocal rest and some time away from making sound of any kind. That's the most extreme case of this. And by not making sound at all, you're finally letting the tissue just rest and do what it needs to do, which is heal. And depending on the injury, sometimes this takes longer than not. Everyone's different. Every situation is different. But simultaneously, not every little tickle and every red flag means that something terrible has happened. If you're really that concerned that you've hurt yourself for any reason at any given moment, the thing you really want to do first before anything is get off of YouTube for a second and get on the phone with a medical professional or a doctor, because you want to really hear what they have to say first before making any sort of decision. You want to really get that information from a really good source. On top of that, depending on what happens there, and in any situation, even if, like, say, you practice and you can tell you, like, went a little too hard one day, or you're trying to track something on your own, or you're in the studio and you're feeling that moment of frustration because it's just not coming out the way you want it to, and you're going for it and going for it and going for it, and you can feel that your vocal ability is kind of diminishing in the moment. This means you need to take another step back, even if it's just for a few minutes. Again, there's more than one type of vocal rest, just as there's never just one right way of doing something. When you're working on things on your own or these other circumstances, even by just taking a few minutes to think about something else, don't scream, don't sing for a little bit, kind of work on something else, think about something else, maybe take a walk, call a friend, do something that isn't the task at hand for a second, and let yourself come down for a second from that level of high urgency and high stress. A lot of times the urgency behind things vocally are things we're creating for ourselves. And it's really hard to notice that in the moment when we feel that buildup of just fear and concern behind the actions that it is that we're taking. So it's really important to recognize these sorts of things and train ourselves to recognize when we're getting a bit too in our head about things and learn how to comfortably and effectively step away, even if it is only for a few minutes. When you're someone learning, for example, like if you've been using our channel here on YouTube, if you've been a member of our EVI Now program, which is our online guided lesson program, or even if you have been taking lessons with me directly, you've heard me probably say this before then. In the beginning, it's really easy to feel the kind of wear and tear, get things wrong a lot because your body still doesn't really know what's going on yet. And sometimes if you're cracking away at a different kind of scream and it really doesn't feel like it's clicking and you can feel yourself getting more and more tired, listen to what your body's asking for and just stop for the day. Even if you've only been going for 10, 15 minutes, that's fine. That's still progress. A lot of you have probably heard me say this before, but I'll say it again. It's not about the amount of hours you put in. It's about the amount of days. That's where the real consistency lies. Even if you only have a few minutes a day, especially even if it's not every day, that's totally fine. Just as there is more than one type of vocal rest, there are many different types of vocal focus as well. This is how you can make yourself also feel better about stepping away from vocals, especially in the beginning when you just want to go, 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 and sometimes you just can't. That can get very frustrating, and that's where a lot of us, and I've felt this way before myself, trust me, that need to overwork can really take over and take hold of a lot of your decision making in these moments, which is why developing the ability to recognize when you're doing this is very important if you are someone that, if you notice you kind of become subjected to that. Now, this is something you can use to make yourself, again, feel better about stepping away, because it's not like it's a full stop, progress starts going in the opposite direction. You don't need to be making these sounds in order to be moving forward. Actively thinking about these things, doing your own research, doing things like watching videos like you are now, even though you're not making screaming noises or singing right now, you're still making progress just sitting here with me. That still counts. That's still positive. You can feel good about that. And you can find things like this in everything that you do as well. Even taking a whole day to do nothing. Say you are a touring vocalist. Say you're someone getting ready for shows to come back. Say you're in the middle of studio sessions. You're working on an album. You have all these deadlines. There's pressure coming at you from many different directions. And you just need a day. I think all of us have felt that in one regard or another, regardless of what it is we do. But I'll kind of continue painting this picture. If you're in that situation and you just need a day, you don't need to feel bad about taking it. Even if you do nothing for your band, for your songs, for anyone else other than you, it's really important to give yourself that time and feel good about giving yourself that time. That's a very important aspect of vocal rest. It's something that you are giving to yourself, not time you are taking away from other things, because that's an inherently negative way of thinking about it. Even with this being said, there are other ways to actually continue to train your vocals in a physical way that don't involve making that much sound or sound at all. For those of you who have been vocalizing for a little while, or if you've been kind of training on your own at home, when you've been going through exercises like the ones that I have for you guys here and in our EVI Now program, or if you're vocalizing along to songs that you enjoy or your own material, or if you've been at rehearsals or anything like that, practices, we've all felt those days where we're feeling just a little off. Vocalizing isn't impossible. We can still do most of it, but you can feel that the edges of what we're capable of are just a little, I'm not feeling it today. And you can tell you're just not at 100%. That doesn't mean it's time to now push yourself and force yourself to be at 100%. because that's not how anything works, let alone your voice and anything related to the human body. This is where something that I've picked up over the years called marking really comes in handy. When you can take those moments where you feel like it's not going to happen and just omit those moments. Say you're singing along to a song and there's a high note coming up, you can just move all the way and then just skip those high moments and then just come back down to where you normally would be in the following part as if you hadn't stopped singing. By going through the motions and kind of playing the part of whatever it is you're doing, you actually still get the vocal workout of having made the sound, even if you stop making noise in that moment. Think of it the way we control pitch. When we're talking to each other, we don't have to think about how to make the sounds we're going to make. They just come out. And because of that, you can control this in the same way. Because you're thinking about the note or you're thinking about the scream, and you're in the moment kind of going through the motions of it, and you were just doing the parts leading up to it, because you're still thinking about it and you're moving like this, the vocal tract will actually create the right circumstances and the right patterns for that sound to happen in. You're just not sending the air through. And because of that, you're not further fatiguing yourself, but you're still benefiting from creating those internal shapes. And you're continuing to solidify muscle memory if it's something you're still working on. And you're continuing that kind of conditioning workout even without making that noise. This is really useful when we're like kind of sick as well and you want to be vocalizing, but you can tell that you're super not at your best. Just omit the things that you know are going to give you trouble. And you're all going to know the answer to that more than I do because you are you and I'm not you. I can't tell you what those moments are. You kind of need to feel them out for yourself. It's, again, another one of those trial and error things. But when you're really feeling like you need to keep doing stuff and you want to really vocalize, this is how you can do so in a safe way to make sure that you don't push yourself too far, because your limits in these circumstances are going to be a little closer to home, uncomfortably so, more than usual. Now let's talk about the example where maybe you have hurt yourself, or maybe you're super sick, or maybe like you're just really overworked and you just need to stop. Whether it is you are talking a lot for work, whatever it is you do, if you're like an international band and you've been vocalizing a ton lately, or if you've been kind of overworking yourself at home, you're learning with singing and screaming, and you've just taken it too far. You've gotten a little ahead of yourself. It happens. Don't feel bad about it. We've all been there. You need to take some time away just to keep things healthy so that you don't get too attached to pounding away like this, because it's really not healthy. Too much of anything is not good for you. That really could not be more true. But there are still things you can do with your time away to continue to maintain where you are and continue your progress, because sometimes just going cold turkey does make it so just a little bit, if you don't use it, you lose it. And say like after like a week off, like you try and get back into vocalizing, you can feel that things are a bit rusty. The gears aren't moving the way they normally do. And it takes a few days to kind of get back on the horse. And then maybe another week or so to kind of feel like you are back to where you were. There are versions of marking that you can use to actually keep yourself where you've been at so that you can actually continue your progress right from where you left off when you do come back from your rest. Now, this is a little bit more meditative and a little more of a mindfulness exercise. And sometimes it's a little more difficult for some to do than others, but it does work. And I'll show you what I mean. Think about the space that you are normally in when you vocalize most, whether that's on stage, whether that's in your room, whether that's in the studio, whatever that answer is for you. You can sit in a comfortable chair, stand somewhere comfortable, and imagine yourself in that place. For me, that's obviously here in this room that you're so used to seeing me in at this point. But if you sit comfortably, relax, take a few deep breaths, close your eyes, envision that space, and now imagine just singing through or screaming through your material, songs that are yours, songs that are other people's. Just kind of imagine it happening in real time. Again, because of how the voice works, and it all comes down to what we're thinking about, the vocal tract will actually create the right shapes and configure itself to make these different sounds. So it's like you're getting the vocal workout that you would through practicing without making a sound. This is really good for traveling as well if you need to keep up with practicing, but say you're like in a hotel room where you're staying with other people and it's late at night and you can't be making a lot of noise because you need to be respectful of other people's space. This is a great way to continue your vocal upkeep and keep up with your vocal responsibilities as well, so you aren't just totally cold turkey stopping. That being said, it actually is important to do like a little bit of a light workout, like a couple of breathing exercises, making sure you're stretching and going through some sirening sounds before going into your screams or anything you're singing, because all the right movements are happening still. So you actually need to prepare as if you are going to be doing them. But because you're not making noise, this really takes all of the fatigue out of the equation and all of the sound as well. Lastly, I will talk a little bit about actual strict vocal rest, because sometimes the need for that does come up. And I know I've had to do this plenty of times, because now, like what my situation is, like teaching all the time, making videos for you guys, and then actively working on my own music as well, sometimes there are days where I just need to stop. Because there are so many other vocal responsibilities, it's important to make sure I'm taking care of myself and giving my body what I need. And that's not a bad thing. And it's easy to get frustrated when you need to take some time away, especially when that to-do list gets kind of long. Giving yourself the space needed to recuperate is only going to make everything else you have coming down the pipeline that much better and that much more enjoyable. Sometimes even getting overly frustrated with ourselves when we're working on new things, all it takes is taking some time away to feel better about what it is we're doing. With strict vocal rest, and I've done this before when I've worked other jobs in the past before I was doing this, and say I was preparing for a show and like I was feeling kind of off and I needed some vocal rest. Even if it wasn't for a full day, it would be like a half a day of strict vocal rest. No sound, no humming, no speaking, nothing. I would use my phone or like a piece of paper and like write notes if I needed to communicate something more specific. And what I would actually do working other jobs, and I've had other people and other students do this as well, I would put a little sign on my station, depending on what I was doing, or like put something on my clothing that said I lost my voice. Because it's not like anybody can argue you on that, because all you have to do is not respond, and suddenly you've lost your voice. And this can really play into your favor. Now you can kind of give yourself the time you need, even if there are other things you need to be doing at the same time, to rest, to heal, to recuperate, to build, to grow stronger, to continue to progress through the things you want and need to be doing on the vocal front, or really any other front as well, because this, as you're noticing, applies to a lot of other things. I wanted to talk in this video and just clear up the air a little bit around what vocal rest is and the different types that there are out there, because, like I said, it's really easy, especially in these learning stages when you're trying to teach yourself how to scream, it's really easy to feel like you need to go in order to keep up with what you think should be happening, in order to keep up with your goals, your expectations, and it's really easy to develop a lot of negative practice tendencies because of this as well. Not the amount of hours, it's about the amount of days. It's okay to take time away. This will actually do way more good than not, especially if you remain mindful throughout these different instances. And who knows, practicing vocal rest, even when you may not totally need it, can help you to develop better and healthier practice methods. And I actually like to do this with my students, and I will present this challenge to all of you here online as well. Doesn't have to be tomorrow, doesn't have to be the day after, doesn't have to be today after you finish this video. Whenever possible, look at your calendar and pick a day to be totally silent. Let's all actively give ourselves a vocal rest day. What I want you all to do throughout this day, you don't have to do anything specifically. You can try the marking thing if you want to. You don't have to. Just really think about what it is you're feeling throughout this day of not making noise. Notice the things you think about. Make notes of these things either in your head, in your phone, write it down on paper like I like to do at the end of the day. And then in the days that follow, when you do get back into the regular routine of things, as you get back into vocalizing or otherwise, take note of how you feel about what it is you're doing. See if you start to feel things differently. Think about things differently. Take a different approach. And then, if this is something you really liked, see how often you can kind of weave vocal rest into your regular day-to-day life. Because even like I said, it doesn't always have to be a full day. You can do part of a day. You can even do a few minutes if you need it. So give this experiment a try. Take this vocal rest day, and when you're done, come back here to this video and leave a comment below with how you felt during it and how you felt about your vocals after the fact. I think this could be really interesting. I'm really excited to see what you all come back with. If you haven't already, definitely subscribe here to our YouTube channel. Give this video a like as well if this was helpful to you. And if you're still teaching yourself how to scream, how to sing, whatever it is you're working on, definitely check out the other videos we have here available to you all as well. Check out our free Facebook community group if you haven't already for even more feedback from your peers and from others from all over the world. Or try out our EVI Now online guided lesson program, which we have been very busy here behind the scenes, making more and more new courses for you all here. But that's all I've got for you guys today. Enjoy your vocal rest and continue to scream responsibly.